Welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor podcast. I am your host, Andy. With me for this summer series of Heroes versus Villains is again Emma. Emma, when it comes to podcasting, I think we all know you're either with me or you're against me.
Well, I know you always get mad at me for ruining your bits, but let's be real. I'm clearly with you. What do you want?
I don't know. A chance to grab a sip of my drink. Last week, as we were heading into these episodes, I said that these were, the semi-lulls episode. And, I think some people responded with, that Heroes versus Villains is its strength is its pre-merge. But after rewatching them now, it's like, nah, these are still great. What did you think of these episodes?
Yeah, I agree. I was watching them, I'm like, oh yeah, these are going to be the boring ones. And I'm like, even the double boot, both boots are somewhat interesting. It was clearly like a timing thing that they just had to do it, not like.
Actually, so I watched some of the I watched Ponderosa and all of that, and it turns out they had like a monsoon for a couple days there. So I think that's why they did it. That seems to be the timing seems to align that basically they probably just couldn't film any challenges because of weather. So I think that's why they had the double. But yeah, I like it in retrospect, it ended up being, a modified pagonging. But as you're watching it, and obviously as we were watching it, 5 years ago or whatever, but these weren't predictable. The end result, with one major exception, was kind of predictable.
Right.
But the first episode, you watch that and you think it's going to go a different way. Second episode, you say it's a double boot. And then, if you were heading into that, you wouldn't have been like, oh, yeah, Candace is the next to go. So
right. Amanda should have been, the really boring, really obvious one. And yes, that was the obvious result. But, it still was we will get into this. But, it very easily could have not happened that way. Except,
it shouldn't have been, and we're about to get into that, but I think that it speaks to why Heroes versus Villains is so strong. It's not, I think, looking back, people think, super awesome pre-merge where you get, the Heroes versus Villains concept, you get Rob versus Russell, you get Tyson's dumb move, you get JT's letter, you get all these strong characters, and then it progresses and then the amazing merge, and then the heroes go until the finale. But no, as this is happening, these are really interesting episodes, and I think why that kind of is because of the madness of Russell Hantz. He couldn't let these episodes be the simple episodes that if you're just looking on the Wikipedia page, it seems like they were. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised to think that these were entertaining throughout. Obviously, a big part of that is it's still entertaining people, but just the results, while they ended up being semi-predictable, it didn't feel predictable as they were going. Other than obviously us knowing how it ended.
Right, there was that.
Although no, go ahead.
No, you go. That's fine.
No, you say things because I was about to change topics.
Well, I was going to say, I sort of was, but that, although when rewatching, I knew Candace flipped and I knew that was a thing that happened, but in watching it, I was like, wait, why did she make this decision? Yeah,
so that's where I think the big thing we start off, because, again, everybody kind of knows that Candace kind of flipped, but it kind of feels like it was treated as incidental, right? Whatever, they were going to go anyway. But no! This is a big deal. I don't, looking on it now, it's why don't we talk about this more? Because she completely changed how this season would have gone and the history of the show, because it was there. All she had to do was not flip, and this whole thing, goes a different way. And we don't really talk about Candace's move in Heroes vs. Villains. Why do you think that is?
Because she was forgettable, despite always being someone who flipped. She's someone people always promptly forgot about until she then got voted out the right away in Blood versus Water. But yeah, Candace Woodcock betraying who we view as the good guys since 2006. Just always oh, these lovable iTunes. Nope, I'm gonna go over to the douchey white people. And the heroes have a chance to wrestle things away from the evil Russell Hantz. Well, I feel like all the votes are there, even though Sandra's telling me that she'll vote with us. So I better flip and be number 6 for no reason.
Yeah, and I think the reason why people don't really talk about it is because it follows one of the most, historic moments in the history of the show, and it's, a very telegenic moment. And we had the same thing earlier in Heroes versus Villains, where everybody thinks and talks about the Tyson moment and Russell's play in that. But the season still shouldn't have turned if Jerry doesn't make her move the next episode. It's the same deal. Russell and Parvati really gets her big moment at the merge. But if Candace just stays, I don't want to say sticks with the plan, but just stays and lets Sandra do her thing, that wouldn't have mattered, and the heroes still would have, been able to prevail, which frankly probably would have led to a much less interesting season. So, and frankly, that's probably true of Cook Islands too. So, Candace, thank you for creating or at least helping with more entertaining television in your absence. Because what she doesn't seem to get, and as you're alluding to, is how did she not learn that this was a bad idea? Like, this whole thing blew up for her the last time she played, and she's like, you know what, I'm going to do that mutiny thing again. I think this time I got it.
Yeah, I don't know. And the thing is, too, I mean, while it seems like, okay, then the heroes would have just done the Pagani, I also think it's possible that once, it's different. I mean, it would have sucked because they ended up having to target Parvati. But if they were able to just get rid of Russell, as planned, I feel like, as we see later, Sandra and Parvati sort of have a thing. It's possible that she would have looped back in with the girls then to get rid of, Colby and Rupert, and who knows what would have happened.
Right.
But yeah, for some reason, Candace just decides that it's more important. She could have gone home 6th anyway. She might have been the last, she's the least threatening, I feel like, of the heroes anyway. So I feel like best case, it's one of those things again. It's what is the best case? I mean, I guess maybe she believes that Russell would take her to the final 3.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a big part of it is fear over the idol, and maybe this is going back. That's the thing she learned from her season. She still thinks, oh no, flipping over and pissing off, this whole group of people was the right idea. I certainly couldn't just wait a few episodes to hook back up with my people. It was the idol. The idol was the only reason why we lost Cook Islands, and it's well, I mean, it's a different idol, Candace, and
and two idols just got played. Another one came in, but you just saw 2 are gone now.
Well, she knows that Russell has an idol, right? He gives her that information. He shows it to her. To her credit, she she makes him show it.
Right. So I'd rather see it now.
Yeah. So all of that is good. So now So it's not dangerous. All you have to do is not vote for him. Now maybe because
or vote for him and make him think you're safe or split. Well, they can split it yet, but vote for Jerry again.
Yeah. But and this time you have Sandra there, and it's just it was an easy plan. I think obviously there was some trust. I think a big part of it is also that she never felt welcome by the heroes. They always were going to vote her out. It's just ended up being that there wasn't a time. But again, you don't. I hate to give future Dan Foley some credit, but why are you pissing off a whole group of jurors? How does this plan work out for her? Because as you say, you could be in the final 3. Yeah, but you're the betrayer of the final 3. At this point, you should just stick with the heroes and go down with the ship. Hopefully, maybe you get to be the last hero, and then you could win a few immunities or find the cracks that way, because it shouldn't be hard to believe that there'll be cracks in an alliance led by Russell Hantz. He's already trying to create them. But yeah, she just totally blew it.
And it would be all girls except Russell. She has a relationship with Parvati in theory, or at least could go back to that. Allegedly had a outside the game relationship with Sandra, and if it's not true that they I don't know. Have you heard about this? Have you read about this?
From the same source. So Barbara Anderson told us about it. Hey, Barbara.
Okay. Hey, gotta shout you out again. But yeah, so they might, even if they didn't live on the same street or whatever, they still.
It should be a bonding thing, right?
Right. They still have the military spouse thing.
Yeah.
They can still use that to bond. She can still use that to connect with, with Sandra, and then she has Cook Islands with Parvati. There were better ways. Ways.
But this is probably one of the bigger messed up flips in the history of the game, and like we don't talk about it. Whereas like we should be talking about it in the same breath as, you know, like other people, I don't know, like the kill the flipper, the flip, you know, we don't seem to mention Candace. Well, like we do mention like I can't think of anybody, but like I just feel like this moment never really comes up, and I think it's probably because Heroes versus Villains has such an embarrassment of riches. But when I was watching it, I just reminded, like, it was there, it was on a platter, you know, for all the, you know, things people say, like, oh, Sandra never really got close. It's like she had it, and then Candace screwed it up, which means that we have to give Russell credit again for stuff. I'm tired of doing it, and honestly, it stops here. But
yeah, pretty much actually.
He possibly would have gone home, or at least gotten completely, you know, very weakened with Parvati going home, if not for him making this connection with Candace, because it didn't seem like Parvati was doing it, even though they like knew each other. Yeah, Jerry, you know, obviously Sandra had no success. Russell, outmaneuvered her.
The other direction.
Yeah, so Russell outmaneuvered her, even though, yeah, she tried. She tried really well, and that she sent Russell away so she could talk to Candace.
Also, how on brand for Russell that's who he chose to target.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, it's straight out of his one playbook. Like, his playbook is the kind that, you know, like the quarterback could write on his sleeve.
He must have been finding like, finally a blonde. Like, the only blonde I had before was Courtney, and that's not the same.
Yeah, and he's like, and you know, he doesn't know who these people are, so it's like, clearly she's the dumb one, because apparently Amanda is Boston Rob in a girl's body.
Right, yeah, and I'm like, Amanda is not a bad player, but that is not the comp she deserves.
No, but I mean, like, Russell Hantz is a typical new Survivor player who he can only make comps to about like 3 players, and he doesn't have himself to be one of those 3. Although, you know, I'm sure he'd be like, what player are you like? I'm Russell Hantz, I'm the only one of all time. But yeah, he did it. He flipped Candace, and it saved him. It was an essential flip at a time when I think most players would assume that, you know, he doesn't need it. You know, they just won. They just won the whole thing by getting rid of JT, but he's not ready to rest on that. He gets one more person. He recognizes that Sandra could be a threat to him in this scenario. He doesn't recognize the true threat she poses, and never does. No. So yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the thing. It's too simple to say that Russell Hantz sucks at Survivor, because he doesn't. He just sucks at a big major portion that is necessary for winning Survivor. But there's a whole lot of little stuff within Survivor that he does, and others don't. And that's why he was able to get to the end. That's why Parvati was able to get to the end. It might be why Sandra was able to get to the end. Because of this moment that, you know, we don't talk about enough. It was essential. We talk about how Parvati saved the villains, but he did as well.
Yeah.
And then he goes on and ruins it, but we can talk about that in a second. Sure. But I want to just talk a bit about the Amanda vote. As you say, it's probably the most obvious one. She, I think, was singled out as the most threatening person because she was the most threatening person left on the Heroes tribe.
Like, that was fair.
But I think it reveals a bit more about Sandra and the whole thing, because in the end, Sandra, of course, does vote for Amanda. Even though, you know, she was pushing. She makes sure she has a conversation with Candace, and then she doesn't flip. And I think this is a good example of her anybody but me voting strategy, because in the end, yeah, as long as it's not me, I'll vote for you. This is why I think a lot of people have it all wrong, that she's a passive player, that she just waits to be told who to vote for. But that's not true at all. She spent the entire episode trying to set things up for herself, and then when it didn't work out, she didn't, you know, go down with the sinking ship.
Right, like it's not worth forcing a tie at that point. Even though it would be kind of tricky. It would be funny because
then you think maybe Candace flips back, yeah.
Oh wait, would it have been a tie, or would it have been 5-4?
Actually, yeah, you're right. It wouldn't have been.
So yeah, then it's really not worth it. I mean, maybe Russell like assumes that Candace didn't flip, and that's what happened. But like, probably what would happen is Candace would be like, "No, I did, but Sandra always told me blah 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 blah." So yeah, I mean, it's just not. It's not worth it.
Yeah, so what Sandra does is she will live to fight another day, and that's what she will end up doing for this part of the season. Whereas other people won't do that. And I think that's where her, as long as it's not me, comes from. And it was the same in Pearl Islands. She wasn't just flipping for anybody. She was very loyal to the group she was with. And then once that started to turn, she started working with the other side. And when they decided to flip to somebody else, she's like, sure, anybody but me, because it doesn't matter as long as it's not me. But it doesn't mean that she just sits back and, lets things happen. There are most of the other players in the season were like that. Sandra was actively trying to do things. She's the only person that really stands up to Russell throughout, including Parvati, the one, the survivor goddess. But I don't know why I'm being sarcastic. She's awesome, but but there's going to be there will always be a lot of people who think that she should have won over Sandra, and I want to emphasize throughout that that's not really the case. But yeah, like when she wants to talk to Candace, she doesn't just kind of hope it happens. She makes it happen. She tells Russell to get lost, and she waits until she has it all flushed out. She just doesn't sit there and guess. She doesn't just operate out of fear like Candace. So it's like, yeah, she will vote for anybody but herself, but it's not a passive thing. It's actually a very active thing. And I think how it works for her is she's able then to quickly form counter alliances and groups and be part of alliances, because everybody thinks that Sandra will be a vote for you because she's shown, yeah, sure, I'll vote with you, but she's still working to see what will work best for her.
Yep. So do we want to talk about the other aspects of this episode?
No, I think we're good. No, it was a good podcast. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's like the first episode. While it ended up being fairly straightforward and Amanda, like I said, it didn't feel like it would be throughout. And then we get, I think, what was the major episode within this portion of it. I think the thing that a lot of people will remember, probably from all three of these episodes, is the Danielle versus Amanda clue fight.
Yes.
Did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, a couple things. Colby, I mean, everyone likes to talk about Colby, like being like, oh, let's just watch Treasure Island. But like, especially, I'm like, Colby's got Danielle and Amanda like wrestling in front of him. Like, even if you take out the game portion, he's just not interested in that at all.
No. Well, I mean, amazing. There is a hidden video where he's like, it was pretty awesome. Two chicks in their underwear fighting. And he does definitely use his chicks because he's a cowboy. But yeah, in the moment, he's just kind of like,
Yeah. And then one thing is, one thing I've noticed really just watching this season, not fully binging, but in a much quicker way than normal. Amanda is like, I think Amanda's best skill is like figuring out when people have idols or like clues to idols or hiding anything at all. Like she sniffed that stuff out. Like she just.
Yeah, she knew what Tom did. She knew what Danielle had here. She was able to figure out with
she found JT. She found JT with the idol. I mean, behind those dead eyes are like the eyes of a shark.
Yeah, maybe that's the thing. She seems so passive because she's actually observant. Because I kind of feel like that was like her strength in China. She was able to kind of really know what was going on and guide Todd to not making all the crazy decisions that he wanted to make. Obviously, there was one where he was pretty insistent that they got locked out and it not burning them. Because I think she was actually a very active player in that alliance, and frankly, heading into tribal council, I thought she had the win until she amended it. A lot of
people did. Yeah. One other sort of silly but just fun thing about the whole clue stuff is when they get back to camp, right? And so they're talking about Amanda's telling that, and Danielle's like telling the villains, that she got the clue, and then she's telling them about how Amanda like tried to steal it from her and stuff. And she makes it sound so much more dramatic. She's like, I wrestled her to the ground and ripped it from her hands, when really it was like, I whined to Colby and he made Amanda give it back.
Yeah, and like, good for her for making it sound. Colby. Yeah,
why did they decide he was?
Yeah, he was the arbiter. Like, okay, finally you get to decide.
Yeah, it's so weird.
it's so symbolic of how passive and kind of out of it that Colby has been most, if not all, the whole season. But I kind of feel a little bit bad for the guy because I think he just woke up from a nap. And you imagine trying to process that and like,
what? No, just keep wrestling.
Yeah.
Keep wrestling. Hold on.
I'm finally on a bed. I just want to. But I mean, yeah, I guess good for Danielle. It's like, this is how strong I am in this alliance that, I'll fight somebody. But it actually, because she had did that, and people have always talked about the big cat fight, that had kind of tricked my memory into thinking that it was a bigger deal than it was.
Yeah,
but
it's
really,
kind of lame.
I know. I was like all ready. I was like, this should be fun. I'm going to get like screenshots. And it's like, oh, yeah, they kind of. And then it was over. Yeah.
Colby, she took my clue. Make her give it back.
What they should have done, like, and again, napping Colby couldn't figure it out. It's like, sure, you can have it back after we read it aloud. Like, that's just a simple thing. And, what are you going to do? But, yeah, Colby, what are you going to do? And Amanda, I think Amanda just felt so betrayed by Colby that she was just like, fine. And she just
like, really? Are you serious, bro?
Now, I do wonder if the producers kind of stepped in. It's like, y'all know you can't really fight, right? That's one of the rules here. So
that is very possible. And yeah, I know you can't steal idols. Obviously, I forget where that. Clues. Yeah, true, because we run around and all that. But yeah, it just also like why under the like. I get they don't have somewhere to, but she's got so much room up here.
Yeah, she just had to be slick,
You couldn't have found a moment to like.
She was looking for a moment, but Amanda's dead eyes.
Shark eyes.
That's right.
Also, she went about that even so awkwardly too. Amanda did like, oh, I'm just gonna switch and get on this side now. I want to get on this side of the bed, and not just be like,
smooth.
Yo, Danielle, I see you have the like just. Why be so weird about it?
Yeah, and then, she was trying to be all like, oh, I'm just sitting here. And then she grabs it right away. Oh, man, there just must be such adrenaline when it comes to idols because it always just seems, whether it's the clue or the idol itself, as soon as somebody grabs it, they're just like, I got to walk away and run. Like Russell did it when he found the idol right after this.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, guys, keep looking. If there's other people around, continue to look.
Yeah, but I guess it's just this thing like, oh my god, I got it, oh my god, I got it. And I bet that's just it. It just sends such a thing through your body that it's hard to play it cool. So yeah, Amanda goes home, and what are the boys gonna talk about next? This is the part where
how sassy Courtney was on the jury.
Yeah, and that was her plan. She was super excited to dress up for everybody and make them jealous, and she does. And she's great, and I'm surprised you actually haven't went and watched Ponderosa because you get a lot of Courtney.
I probably will Sunday. I don't have time for that.
Oh yeah, sure you don't. You had to finish BoJack.
Yeah, actually, I did that very quickly.
So yeah, as we say, Amanda first, then Candace second, which just shows really smart idea to flip because also that worked out just so well.
Yeah. Although I gotta say too, that was a good move. That was smart of Colby to figure that. It seems like it was him who figured out like, wait, they might split. Like they're gonna split it. Maybe they'll split it between you and Candace instead of you and me. Like, let's just vote for Candace. See what happens. And like. It's like a see what happens saving them, and it's also really satisfying. Like he even says, he's like, and if it works, like, how great will that feel, right? Yeah, and I bet it did. I bet it felt awesome. It
probably feels like sending Candace to Exile Island all the time.
Right, yeah, that was also pretty great.
Yeah, actually, like, Colby has picked, like, I think, because he's the doofus who's sitting there while people are fighting over clues, and he's the doofus who yells at his brother in the water bucket throwing challenge. It's and he's just a sad sack in challenges. I think people have like figured like he's gotten now the reputation that Colby Donaldson just never knew strategy and doesn't know anything about Survivor, and that's just not true. I mean, I think his heart wasn't into the season as much once things turned against him. He gave interviews that he just never liked modern Survivor where you're only allowed to go like in a 1 mile radius around your camp because really like miles away, there's like a hotel. They are not as remote as they used to be.
Well, there's only so many remote places.
Exactly. But like he knew some things. He picked up on a few things. That was
because like splitting votes, that wasn't even a thing in either of his previous seasons. You know, it's the same as when Rob had to figure out that they needed to split the votes in case of the idol. And like this was he's like he had to figure out that because Rupert was pretending to have an idol, that the villains were probably going to split the vote, and who were the options there and stuff like that. And it does make me wonder, we didn't see it, but I do wonder if he and Jerry talk. Because Jerry's the one who really is like, could we do Candace?
Yeah.
And she doesn't like Candace, and Colby's like, oh, maybe they'll vote Candace. And,
and Jerry picked up that she was dangerous. And actually, so now that we're talking about Candace, as we said, Candace should have had a connection with Parvati. Candace had a connection with Amanda. These are the very first two people booted from the jury, and it didn't seem at all like
Parvati had a connection with them.
Right. Sorry, yeah. Parvati had a connection with both of these, and she had no connection with Colby or Rupert. And they're the first two to go. These are the people that she could have spent some FaceTime with, making connections, trying to shore up their vote later. And we don't really see them talk ever since after Amanda spills the beans about Parvati needing to play her idol. I had mentioned this last week, and I just wanted to draw attention to it, is that do we ever think that Parvati actually made any connections with the heroes? And right here, these are the two people she could have made semi-alliances with, or at least just social bonds so they'd feel good about voting for her later. And it doesn't happen. What does this say about her jury management skills this season, if anything?
Well, I think like you alluded to last week, I think with Amanda especially, who she arguably, like, who knows, it had been years since Cook Island. I mean, it had been years since all of them, but many more years since Cook Island. Who knows? Maybe she and Candace just didn't keep in touch at all. This was that.
Sure, but it's kind of like if you ran into somebody on the island that you were like went to high school with, you'd probably find a reason to talk to them. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. And then, but yeah, with Amanda, who she, was arguably closer to, and we did see her talk to once, was, I think, like you said, she was probably hurt that Amanda just, like, totally, like, sold her out and was, like, had this, was, like, so against her. So I think, yeah, that just kind of turned her off to the whole thing. And I don't know. I mean, last time, she won before, but it was, as you said, it was like the two fan girls were just enamored with her, whether enamored on a not normal, more low-key level like Alexis, or really enamored like Natalie, and that doesn't really work in an all-star season.
Yeah. But like, and some people say like she couldn't win people over that way, but she did on the Villains Tribe, right? Like Jerry hated her at the beginning. Jerry doesn't hate her now. Jerry likes her quite a bit, Sandra wanted to vote her out. She maybe even have cast votes for her. I don't know how that split worked.
Yeah.
And now, and we see her and Sandra yucking it up in delightful ways in these few episodes. So, like, she has the ability of winning people over. Coach was afraid of her ability to win her over. In the end, I think she kind of did a bit because, spoiler alert, he votes for her. But she just never turns that charm onto the heroes. And maybe, maybe it just wouldn't have worked. Maybe the appeal of Sandra just couldn't be beat. But it's like, no, we have no evidence that she tried. There's even, stories out there, possibly apocryphal, that like she was joining in with Russell and like mocking them in like their presence, like bringing out JT's note and like reading it and laughing. Like, we like.
Let's be fair. Would you have been able to risk making fun of JT's letter?
If I probably wouldn't do it in front of them. No, because I talk about people behind their backs. That's how I roll.
Right, where it belongs.
That's right. Or I subtweet. I subtweet frequently, but I don't at people. I try not to do it in front of them. That's
the key. Well, they only have a mile they can go each direction. So sometimes they're just there.
So yeah, if I was trying to get people to vote for me, I like to think that maybe I wouldn't tease them mercilessly in front of them. Now, interestingly, Sandra does anyway. It's just she can get away with it. But
I do wonder how you were saying though, how Sandra and Jerry sort of come around to her. It's like they didn't like her when they weren't on her side. Eventually, like I think it's once Jerry is brought into that alliance by Russell, suddenly, she can get to know Parvati as not as an adversary. And I think that's the same with Sandra. And now there's definitely the sense of, she should have been trying to contact these people as an adversary. But I think with someone like Parvati, whose charm is so threatening, it's like when she's, against you, you don't want to let her in at all, And
but there's other people in history of Survivor who have lost a tribal council that we blame for it, right? Boston Rob, he was so bad in All Stars that he's a horrible player, lost by 1 vote. She only got 3, and it's never Parvati's fault. It's always either praise for Sandra, correct, and I'm very excited to do that in one more episode, or those jury members were bitter, and it's just like I think maybe again. That just the appeal of Sandra is so great, and the key for her winning was to get rid of Sandra and to go up against the jury with people that didn't happen. But I do just think like there's no evidence that Parvati had any relationship with many jurors, and that's a problem. Maybe, and I feel better if she ever had scenes with those people, but she just lost. But it seemed like she just was like, those people are over there. These are my people. I'm going to shore up alliances here. And frankly, that didn't really work that well either. And that gets us to the next thing. Because the Danielle boot, is, I think, very momentous. Maybe it doesn't feel like it because it's freaking Danielle. And we've argued maybe she shouldn't have been there in the first place. But I think it illustrates the flaws of the 2 people who lost in the final 3. So the obvious one is Russell. So let's start there.
Okay, well, I frequently was trying to get your attention because I had something I wanted to say. So
right,
I'm going to backtrack. Well, definitely true. And like a flaw in Parvati's game, yada, yada, all the stuff you said. One thing that stuck out to me when you were talking about how like people say, oh, it's Rob's fault and this, or it, was say Russell's fault and Samoa and stuff, and how instead people praise Sandra. What I think the key is that I think a lot of times when we blame finalists, or when people blame finalists, with perhaps the exception of Amanda, just because Amanda, is when it's people not wanting to give credit to the winner. Yeah. People don't want to talk about Amber playing a great game, or this is lessened as a reaction to Russell, or talk about Natalie White playing a great game. So they instead, or Michelle playing a great game, so they talk about why Rob, Russell, Aubrey, whoever, Sash, why these people lost instead of why Fabio won, because you don't consider that compelling. So I think because Sandra was a much more worthy opponent, I think that's actually probably a decent sized part, especially because the Survivor community we partake in, at least, is a very pro Sandra space. People don't want to feel like criticizing someone else is like taking away their win.
Yeah, and I do think another part of it is because Russell Hantz is right there, and it's just so
easy. There's also that.
Yeah, it's just so easy to discuss the Russell versus Sandra dynamic. But yeah, it's like she beat 2 people there, and if you're like one of the people who feels like Parvati really was the superior player, then maybe you need to look for reasons why she wasn't. And because obviously the other thing is just like, well, the jury didn't want to give her credit, but I personally try not to just denounce jury decisions. I try and I did that with Aubrey, as you're saying. Yeah. So I just thought that these are another batch of it. And then these frankly are the last batch of episodes where it seemed like we had a chance to see Parvati's relationships with future jurors. And I mean, obviously not everything makes the edit, but it's not there. And the bonus scenes is not there either, so it just seems like she was focused on her group. And as we move on, she wasn't that in control of her own group either.
And actually, one thing, this is skipping ahead briefly to the Rupert vote, actually, but I think it's really sort of key in this, is when, like, a time where, you know, they talk about how playing to the jury once they're on the jury is also important. And there's a part where they're talking about Russell and Sandra fighting and yada yada. And Parvati sort of plays to the jury, like, you know, they say how Russell asked Sandra, you know, you're either with me or against me. And Jeff's like, oh, so I mean, I'm sure you said, you know, I'm with you, right? And she's like, no. And Parvati is the one who says to the jury, like, yeah, she was like, I'm against you. And, like, you know, plays that up. And it's funny and the jury laughs, but it makes Sandra look good.
Yeah.
It's much more, it's still a Sandra, even though it's like Parvati performing and a fun thing. And look, I'm kind of siding with Sandra in this instance. It's still a Sandra moment that is what's getting played at the jury. And I think that's important.
And I get why. It's like, you know, it's like, it was so funny. I can't wait to tell you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Like, oh my God, you guys, you would not believe that.
And it's like, finally, they'll actually side with me for a second, but I had to go to this. Because, like, I'm not denying that she had an uphill battle to climb. But, you know, she wants to win, you got to climb that mountain. And she doesn't.
That was it was a point I noticed when watching, and since we were on that topic, I don't want to forget.
No, it's a good observation. And the other thing I think she needed to do was go to the final three with the right people, which I'm going to go back to this transition, is that didn't happen. Danielle got booted. And that's not a good, I don't think it's a good look for her. And I really don't think it's a good look for Russell. You know what, I was going to talk about Russell, but since we're on the Parvati, let's talk about this. Because in the end, in the final tribal council, she has just a great line in question. I believe it was to Coach. About how everybody was talking about, you know, trying to get rid of Russell, that he was their dragon. I made the dragon my pet. It's a fantastic line. I think the Danielle boot proves that it's a complete lie. Or if not a complete lie, you know, not exactly accurate.
He wasn't, you know, Viserion or he was Drogon.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, if you're going to make a dragon your pet, don't be surprised if, you know, a sheep herder comes with the charred remains of their, you know, baby every once in a while, because that's what happened. For all control you had over your pet, it sure seems to bite a lot of people. So, you know, talking about this whole level of mastery and control and how you used Russell to further your own game, we saw that how that worked, as your closest alliance partner is sitting there crying in front of us and you're powerless to keep her from getting booted. That maybe that more than anything, and the other things I'm grasping at straws, but like, she needed to go to the end against Russell and Danielle, and she couldn't make that happen because Russell decided to do something crazy.
Yeah.
So, like,
she did, you know, do her best in talking to Jerry beforehand, and like, it seemed like they did fine. Yet at the end of the day, Russell's able to just say Danielle to Jerry during tribal, and that's what happened.
Yeah, and obviously Danielle made that happen as well through her own actions, right?
Yeah, that wasn't a great moment, Danielle.
Yeah, and I think, and Jerry hears that and it's like, oh, well, I guess I'm not in the final three. So yeah, I mean, good move by Jerry, in fact. But it proves that, yeah, Parvati didn't have the level of control that she had. And I think, you know, I think in the next episode, not to jump ahead, but she might not have even made the end if she didn't win the immunity at the right time. Like, that's how little control she actually had on Russell's hands. And frankly, as we see both in the not the Candace vote, the Amanda vote, and obviously in the Tyson vote, Russell saved her ass twice. Right. So, which, I mean, on one hand, it's forethought for her of choosing a good ally, that somebody who can do that for you. But it kind of proves the lie that I don't think she had the same level of control as you think. And I think, the main argument of why Parvati was actually the best player of this season, why she might have deserved, if you're looking strictly on gameplay and it's not the jury just currying favor with the person who failed to get rid of Russell, is one move, isn't it? Like, it's basically what she did with JT. And then after that, what does Parvati really do? She loses her most valuable alliance partner over basically because Russell just decided to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like, I don't know if it was initially, I mean, I guess it would have been eventually, but yeah, basically Russell is a, jealous little baby and can't deal with the fact that they're friends, and freaked out and decided, oh, I'll try to turn them against each other, and then didn't realize that she might be like, well, I'm gonna ask her about this, and then freaked out some more. And then that would be, for those of you who may follow me on Twitter, it was watching this scene where I tweeted, I don't think Russell Hantz understands women.
Yeah, that was a fantastic scene, and it shows how
like,
Russell,
wait, no.
ways,
I mean, why would you do that? I mean, if he's gonna give it away, don't talk to her.
Yeah, then you're gonna go gone. Like that's always his as soon as he's called out on his BS, which happens frequently, right? Because he's not playing with idiots. Although frankly, I don't know if the Samoa people were the idiots that he likes to claim they were. A lot of them caught on pretty early that this guy is full of it, but I'd love to go to the end against him. Yeah, they were always like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go do this thing. And he's all like, you do that, you're gone. It's like, Russell, you don't scare us. Yeah. But he did prove he's a little dangerous because in the end he got his way. Danielle was voted out. Why that helped him, I don't know, but it's just because he's Russell Hantz. Everybody must always recognize his brilliance, and so he did it just to show that he can. And here's, I think, it shows how the two sides of Russell Hantz.
Can I briefly make of what I think you'll consider an amusing comparison?
As long as it's not my comparison.
It's not, I promise. It's very different. I was just thinking that the whole thing, especially because Parvati has dealt with this before, the whole thing of talking to two separate women on Survivor about different things, then being like, oh God, they talk to each other. Oddly Reichenbachian, if you will. What started the whole situation that led to his downward spiral of giving away immunity anyway was
Russell Hantz and Eric Reichenbach just always compared to one another.
Exactly the same, honestly.
But yeah, so while I think this is indicative of another reason why Parvati lost, because it kind of weakened her claim of being the mastermind pulling the strings. This, of course, more than anything, shows why Russell loses because, and he doesn't know this, it's not a good look to drive your alliance mates to tears at Tribal Council. It's not a great way of winning over a jury.
Not only does it look bad to people on the jury, hey, you're making, although they kind of were mocking her for crying too, but I still think they'd choose Danielle over Russell. But yeah, let's see. I'll completely betray my second closest alliance mate and make her cry on the way out. Perfect. She's going to write my name down.
Championship. Yeah, it's just, and this kind of gets back to something I was talking about, a couple in terms of this podcast, several episodes before that, is Russell is able to do things like that, winning the little battles throughout Survivor, because he's willing to go where other people won't. Because other people have their eyes on winning the game, but not Russell. He gets very single-minded and he just does things so he can do it. I made kind of a crazy analogy there before about the China Olympics or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the other one I've actually meant to make then, and luckily it still stayed relevant, is this kind of makes him the Donald Trump of Survivor. In that, if you look at the Republican primary season, Donald Trump was sure, yeah, it was fun times, wasn't it? But Donald Trump was able to, stay in it, gain victories, and move ahead by just out and out trashing all the other Republican candidates, and they wouldn't hit back until it was too late, because they were like, well, that's not how you win elections. You can't just burn every bridge and destroy the party from within and then expect to win in November. But Donald Trump wasn't focused on that. He was just like, yeah, I'll win Iowa by making Bush look like an idiot, and then once he drops out, I'll attack this next guy and Cruz and Rubio and whoever. And it's just and he just didn't. I don't care. I'll say whatever. I will push this to places that make people uncomfortable to the point where they don't know how to respond. And Republicans is like, oh man, he's saying bad things, but I can't denounce him because I also want those people to vote for him. And I think that's kind of what happened with Danielle here, is that he kept pushing and she didn't even know how to deal with such a thing because it was so counter to the way one should play Survivor that I think it kind of broke her brain.
Yeah, I think that's probably why she even started crying. I know personally, it's the worst, and very much in addition to your standard sadness, am very much a frustrated crier. Amy Poehler has a great quote in her book that it's talks about telling people I'm not crying because I'm upset, I'm crying because of how wrong you are. Where it's like you just get so fed up talking to people who are making such stupid things that suddenly this water is coming out of your eyes, and you're like, what the? Now I look weak, and this is cool, and all that.
Yeah, like she didn't even know how to argue with him because she couldn't comprehend what he's trying to do. Like,
Right.
Why are you doing this, Russell? We are on the same team, and like you're just making stuff up, and I can't. Like, how do I even combat that without also looking like a madman myself? And then he responds by being like, "See, yeah." Like he doesn't have the emotion. He just keeps pushing and punching and pushing and pushing, and and then she just explodes. And I think that's often how he was able to win small battles throughout Survivor. Is he goes to places and he just keeps pushing. People are like, "Yeah, no, what are you doing?" And before they know it, they're gone because they are playing by an established set of rules, and he doesn't care about those rules. And in the end, it doesn't pay off for him. And, I don't want to get too cocky, but spoiler alert, I don't think it's going to pay off for Donald Trump either. So maybe an analogy. Russell Hance is just like Donald Trump. And you know what? I bet he'd love to, kick babies out of reunions and that sort of thing too. So.
And I also think, I think how you're saying how she just didn't even know how to argue with him. I think that's how he kind of tricks her, like where she makes this somewhat foolish move to say, oh, I'm closer to Parvati than you think. It's because so much of what he was saying was like, oh, she's trying to get Parvati out. She's trying to turn on Parvati. So he's trying to be like, but I'm not even, why would I do that? Like, I
might turn Parvati on you, but not Parvati. Yeah. She's like,
we have a great relationship and yada, yada. And so then it's like, then it just turns into this stupid thing that he knew. It's just, also, like, why did this, it's probably you started with 20. It's going to be a final 3. Like, calm down.
Yeah, no, I know. Like that's the madness of Russell Hance. The attention and the focus wasn't on him, and obviously this is building from Parvati not sharing the idol clue with him before, which I don't fault her for, by the way, because again, like he's a madman. How do you know? Like, maybe you don't do that to your ally, but at the same time, like you shouldn't anticipate that like 2 votes from now he's going to turn on you and try to get rid of you while these heroes are still around, because that's the way a crazy person would think. And
I feel like the move maybe would have been, and he probably wouldn't have bought it anyway. Like, I found it right before.
Yeah.
Like I found it right before we went to Tribal. What do you want?
But like
that probably wouldn't have worked.
But getting to Danielle's frustration, it's like arguing with like an internet troll. And you're trying to like use logic, you're trying to use anything, and they're just like, no. And to further that along with Donald Trump, right? Like any argument, crooked Hillary. It's just like, but I don't know how to, and it can be infuriating unless you become accustomed to how you deal with trolls, is you don't feed them. Actually, I had this lower in the breakdown, but it kind of makes sense here. So like, Russell Hance has this amazing like ability to create hard feelings and backstab every single person he puts on the jury, and that's almost remarkable. So I think we should break it down, starting with Coach, and how like he personally betrays every single person, because frankly it shouldn't be possible, and he somehow managed to do it in Samoa too, even though he came into the merge down numbers and should have been able to like ride an underdog swing of like, I didn't betray any of you people, but he does. So Coach, that's the obvious one, right?
Yeah, Coach, that's a total betrayal thing. Although he doesn't technically vote for him, but
that's like Coach Russell trying one thing, like I'll try something new, because he even signs his vote for Courtney, but nobody's believing you, buddy.
And then okay, we'll give him Courtney. That's not a betrayal.
Yeah, that's two sides.
She's not gonna vote for him anyway, but it's not a betrayal.
Obviously, JT is a huge betrayal. Now, it's a betrayal you do. I don't fault him for that, but it's huge.
It's the right move, But it's definitely, it's not like he asked, it's not like he set out to betray JT. JT handed him an idol for no reason. Well, for reason, but, for where he's sitting. It's just like, well, going with them makes 0 sense, so I'm not going to do that, but now I have an idol. And then
now, if you believe the stories, he maybe then finds a way to retroactively twist the knife into JT's back by continually mocking the letter in front of the remaining heroes, who will later go to the jury box and maybe tell that story
and say that happened.
Amanda, does he talk to Amanda and just kind of start talking about the potential of forming an alliance?
Honestly, I can't.
I don't
recall.
recall. So
we'll give him that too.
But Candace is like, yeah,
that totally fucked her up. Oh,
yeah, it's like
I was doing so well.
He forms this complete alliance with her and then just votes her out right away. I think he kind of did that in Samoa too, right? Somebody they flipped and then flipped right back. Was that John? Fisher, yeah. So you found a way to betray.
Now he's with Parvati.
Yeah.
So he won at the end.
But he's such a poser.
Yeah, but he gets to date Parvati.
So I guess he did win in the end.
That's what I said.
So yeah, Candace, total betrayal, even though it shouldn't have been. She should have just been somebody on the other side. Obviously, Danielle is a huge betrayal.
Huge.
Then he makes a deal with Rupert for the final 3. Just, I don't know, for fun? Like,
yeah.
Like, it should have just been the easiest thing. Sorry, Rupe. Sorry, Colbert. And you're the ones,
Yeah.
And this is after, like, Rupert had already, attacked him. And after, he fights back against Rupert and, makes fun of him.
But Russell didn't get invited on the family reward. So now he has to go pout again.
Exactly, and that's exactly it. This is Russell. It's just all he is a raging id. And anytime something doesn't go his way, oh my God, he is Donald Trump. If somebody says anything about Donald Trump, he can't not respond. So yeah, he's like, yeah,
someone who will be baited by a tweet cannot be in charge of our nuclear weapon.
Russell Hance is constantly baited by tweets, isn't he? Like, isn't he the first guy to snap back at everything?
On Twitter, but
no, nor do I. But they find their way into my stream at time to time. I haven't blocked him, and because I don't talk about him enough, he hasn't blocked me. That would be a great honor. But yeah, like so he betrays Rupert. He kicks Rupert's butt on the way out, even though that should have been easy. He kind of mildly, we haven't gotten to it yet. We'll mildly talk to Colby about such an idea, just again for funsies. Jerry is a huge betrayal. So, like, he finds ways to not just vote people out, not just, play cutthroat, but to, like, twist the knife one more time. Like, I'm going to give them a little bit of hope and then vote them out. Apparently, he did the same thing with Brett. Like, do you remember there was a character named Brett in Samoa?
I remember Brett.
I mean, nobody really knows what he looks like. He was mostly just a rumor.
All-Star Beauty Tribe Brett, you mean? I'm not the only one who thinks that. I have talked to other Survivor fans who are attracted to men, and Brett is cute, okay?
Well, I'm guessing he probably was, cast because he's attractive, because he certainly wasn't cast for his personality, right?
Yeah, but he's so pretty.
Apparently, Carter had more personality than he. And that's right. We're using this Heroes versus Villains time to talk about Invisibrett and Carter. You're welcome. So yeah, it's just nobody in that would watch this show, frankly, would ever argue that Russell Hance should win. But I do think he has this just unique ability to just extra make sure that they're not going to vote for him on the way out.
In fact, I'm pretty sure it was a long time ago. It was not during this watch, but I'm pretty sure I've read somewhere too that Russell also allegedly, it's like Coach had given him some sort of like cross necklace or rosaries or something. Well, he's not Catholic, he's just Christian, I think. But some sort of like religious thing that he had like given to Russell, and then Russell, in trying to like make his final 3 with like Rupert and Colby, gave it to Rupert, and then Rupert went to Ponderosa, and Coach was like, what's that you got there?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I've never heard that, but it's completely believable as true.
And then apparently Coach said, ooh, exploiting people's religions to become a losing finalist. Interesting theory. Interesting possibility.
The playbook. So yeah, I mean, just it's another fun thing to watch. Just the way that Russell will find one more way to make people hate him, even if it's unnecessary. So the final person to go home in these set of episodes was Rupert, and he's able to avoid it for a little bit of time, largely based on the badness of Russell Hance. But as you were getting at with the Candace thing, he got the vote off of him because he put a rock in his pocket. Now, this says a couple things. I think the fun one is it shows, once again, just how easily you can manipulate Russell in short-term ways by playing to, his manicness. all Rupert had to do is put a rock in his pocket. But it's also like that's like one of the most effective fake idol plays, if not the most effective play of all time, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's an accident. I mean, I think the thing people make a mistake of is like trying to show people, you know?
Yeah, like maybe that's the thing. Like you put so much work into making a believable looking one that you want to show it. And the key, just grab something heavy and put it in your pocket. Yeah, because actually that kind of worked in Kaurung, right? Or would have if you.
Actually, I think it made things worse for him, which is silly. It's like he had an idol. They wanted to target him because he had an idol. Because at that point, it was too early in the game. He did have an idol, but that wasn't the idol. It was weird. Yeah. But yeah, because I think the thing is, it's like when you have an idol, you don't show it to the people who are gonna vote you off. You show it to the people maybe who are on your side. But like, that's why people always say like, oh, with these fake idols and like showing people kind of figure out that they're bluffs, you know? Like, oh, well, if it was a fake idol, like
if it was real, you would just play it. You wouldn't be trying to bargain here. You would just use it and get rid of one of us.
Exactly. And so, you know, and I gotta say, Rupert does a pretty good job with how he acts at Tribal too. Like his line, I mean, because you know, knowing Rupert, he can't like lie, but it's also but you also would be a little more subtle at Tribal too. You wouldn't just say that you found it. So he's like, you looked. He's like, I went out and I looked until I felt comfortable.
Yeah, and maybe you let loose a little thing because people would say things by accident that would be their tell. No, like Rupert played this really well, and as you're getting at, a fake idol only works if people believe you have an idol, and that you are going to play it. So any attempt you make in trying to make a bargain that prevents you from playing it gives the whole game away. So I think either you just make them think you have something, in which case you really don't need to carve nothing or put a bunch of beads, or you may let them find it. It would be another way of playing a fake idol. Like you have it in your bag and you just kind of leave it there, like walk away, maybe kick your bag open so it spills out. But you can't ever actually show it. It's like, well, look what I got. I'm not going home tonight. So how about you don't vote for me? How about we do this? It's like, oh, well, okay, that's not real because you clearly don't want us to vote for you. If it's a real idol, you want us to vote for you. Yeah. Because that's the only power the idol has is if it deflects votes.
Especially unless you're like the last one standing and you're trying to extend it. Because if you still have allies, you don't want them to be like splitting the vote and getting rid of one of your allies instead. You hope that they all, you hope that you get like Wentworth and they all vote for you and you can get rid of someone, That's the goal.
Yeah, you have to think that they think that they know you have an idol, but they don't know you have an idol. So that was the clue. So there's a little tip, and shockingly, you are going to learn a future Survivor tip of how to play strategically from Rupert. But it's just like it's all about misdirection.
Broken clocks right twice a day.
Well, it's interesting you say that because, and this is maybe I'm crazy, and I'm fully prepared for you to challenge me on this, but was Rupert the best game player of the heroes that made the merge?
Consider the merge the entire 1 o'clock hour or minute or whatever that a broken clock is right. He played 4 times. I feel like we've got a good leeway of that being one instance. So, which is my weird, long-winded, confusing way of saying, like, I think he probably was. Like, Colby had that one thing of suggesting Candace, but otherwise, like, nobody. I mean, Amanda's attempts to play totally screwed everything up. Yep. Candace was a tire fire. Mm-hmm. JT was. He had no chance. Once they merged, it was over for him.
Right, so. But also, his desperate, assurances that Russell hadn't flipped. Whereas Rupert, obviously completely armed with the information he got from Sandra, recognized that Russell was full of it. Rupert tries to get Russell riled up in a way of maybe pissing people off when he goes to attack him. He survives the vote because he put a rock in his pocket. And then just like early in the game, even like he should have been voted out, right? Like he broke his toe the first episode, right? And then the stupid heroes are, preaching their whole, keeping this strong. Rupert should have been an easy vote, but he made the right alliances that carried him through. And it might have seemed stupid, and pig-headed that he was like going to target Tom instead of broken down James, but that made sense for Rupert. James was an ally who was protecting him. Tom definitely was not. So yeah, I kind of think he easily did. Now here's the thing, it's a very low bar, so I'm not like suddenly on the Rupert Bonham train, but
we're not saying he played the best in the game.
No, like it might have been below every single villain, but of the heroes that made the merge, and I don't just mean like post merge, I mean the entire game, I think Rupert played the best. And frankly, that was something that I was a little surprised to notice on this rewatch. I mean, I always remember it. I think I probably didn't realize just how much that actually helped. Like he was going to go home if he didn't put a rocket in his pocket.
Yeah.
Which is so ridiculous. But yeah, who knew? Like Rupert learned a thing or two, because like he didn't have this game in his first two.
No.
He was just kind of the Rory tie-dye guy in his first one, and then he was the one that was dragged along by Jenna and Rob because he was he was a useful
Jenna
idiot.
Lewis of all people, yeah.
Whereas here, I think he did some things. So maybe he would have been so much better if he didn't have to surrender for his blood in Blood versus Water.
Damn, I was hoping you were gonna say his wife so that I could make a blood joke, but you ruined that for me.
As if I'm not gonna take that joke for myself. I don't dish out assists on this podcast. I shoot buckets.
You are wearing a Lakers jersey. I don't know if that means anything. I don't watch basketball.
It probably does, yeah. Kobe made sure that everybody knew that he was a shooting guard. Shooting is what he does. And this arm is for buckets.
But yeah, we saw Laura Bonham this week too.
Yes, the prequel of Blood versus Water right here.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if maybe she was an All Stars too. I mean, we'll have to wait for that rewatch.
Yeah. Well, you said they had been together for 12 years. So probably.
One would suspect you had made it there too. It's actually, I think there was a few people that end up being on Survivor later that make little cameos in this. I don't know about this season. She might be the only one because sadly.
Yeah, this season I think just.
But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. Anything else from these episodes?
Reed, come on.
Yeah, how did they not have Colby and Reed for Blood versus Water?
I mean, the short. It's so good.
I mean, when they first announced the concept of Blood versus Water, I believe, at least, I remember John and I, but probably on like the AV Club, RIP, like started talking about the various family member pairings that would be possible, like the ones we had heard of, because we didn't know about the legendary Monica Culpepper connection, or
I remember looking back at those, and everyone was so convinced Rob and Nicole were 100%.
100%, without a doubt.
It's not even a question.
And then we were like Taj and Eddie George, but yeah, like Reed and Colby. Now, I will say the caveat is, I don't really ever want to see Colby Donaldson play Survivor again. Right. It just gets sad, and we'll have one more episode talking about that. But like of memorable family things, like the throw in the water at Reed and how pissed off it made Colby is pretty up there. Now here's the question: it maybe not up there as much as his weirdly erotic date with his mom in Australia, but.
It did make me wonder if we should do like a bracket of loved ones, just because it's so funny.
There we go. That's that what we're doing? Is that next year's bracket?
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna run out of topics eventually. Sure. And then I was thinking, like, I mean, this is much more of a downer thing, but the sort of how Tony couldn't have his wife visit because they just had it. Whenever you have the like people who clearly aren't your like number one choice, so Sandra has her uncle, because, her mother had unfortunately passed away, and because her husband is deployed. And I was just thinking, can you even imagine if they were able to, if the timing worked, that they were able to get Sandra's husband to visit?
It'd be like in, all the sports, all the different, baseball games, we surprised you with this, which is always, fake and paid by the military.
If we had thought that Jeremy and Val wasn't emotional, like loved one, but that would be like everyone would be like wrecked. Like she wouldn't have been the second loved one picked, that's for sure. She would have been.
But like, Russell would still resent it.
Yeah, it would be like what everyone did except for Sandra for Pearl Island. That would happen. They'd all just be like, "We're just not gonna throw our bucket. You just do this. Like it's fine. Go ahead."
People will be throwing it into her bucket.
Yeah.
Russell would still be bitter that he didn't get to spend time with the wife that he basically divorces once he gets back, I think.
Right. He is so salty, and he tries so hard to pretend like, oh, yeah, what a bad strategic move. And I'm like, well, not if she figures you're in her alliance and, wouldn't like turn on. Like Sandra actually, like Parvati maybe not the best choice. Sandra, a great choice because she's on the outskirts of your alliance.
Yeah, the person she probably should have been most worried about flipping was Sandra. But no, right, it's always about Russell. So yeah, I know that's a really funny challenge. I love the scene of, and that I alluded to in the open of the show of, Russell either with me or you're against me, and Sandra's just right up. I'm against you, Russell.
I'm against you. Yeah. I have in my notes, I'm against you, Russell, iconic.
It is, and it just shows like this whole idea that Sandra is this passive player that does anybody but me. It's completely false. She is challenging Russell in ways nobody else will throughout the entire season, and it works for her. It helps her win the jury, I believe. Yeah. So no, she's not a passive player. Here's the other thing that, and I figured we'll talk about this a lot more next episode, but beyond her, advanced under the radar strategy and 2-time winner and all of that, Sandra is just so entertaining. And I don't know if she gets enough credit for that. Just like the way she will always just talk and talk and talk. When she plays her idol, she interrupts Jeff. It's just fantastic.
Hold on, I gotta get it out of my bra.
But as soon as he starts his little spiel, if anybody has an idol, she just stands right up. Should I let you finish? Like, she is always talking her shit, and it's great.
Is that in a pre or post Kanye lets you finish world?
Pre, I imagine. I don't think Taylor Swift has been on the scene that long.
No, I think it might be post. Yeah. Okay, so Heroes vs. Villains, 2010?
I think so.
Okay, I specifically remember watching the VMAs in my roommate's suite, in our, in sophomore year of college. So it really just depends which was 2009 to 2010. So either way, it could go either way.
But she was like, should I let you finish? I believe if it's a Kanye call, you have to do I'ma let you finish. Like that's the I'ma is the essential part.
True.
So yeah, I just wanted, that was, I loved it. I've watched it twice since then. Sandra's great. The way she always messes with Russell and, it shows no fear about him is perfect. And that'll be fun watching one more episode of that because she still has one more great iconic line to come.
Yeah. And that scene, I think, also shows just sort of how bad of a decision it was of Russell to burn to vote out Danielle, because in doing that, he's also burned Parvati, who's really was supposed to be his number one. This is, ride or die alliance there. And he gets all when Jerry doesn't pick up for the voice, oh yeah, I bet Parvati would have done that too, even though I saved her twice. And it's well, yet you just voted out her friend and emotionally destroyed her for no reason. And so that you have, it's, Parvati and Sandra hanging out and
laughing
and be oh, you sound like Boston Rob, and wow, when did you become Boston Rob? Are you with me or against me? And he's just getting so mad, because he can't really do anything about it. You guys are being so dumb. You guys are being so stupid right now, making fun of me. I'm Russell Hantz.
Oh yeah, I know. The impudent rage of Russell Hantz in so many of these episodes, I love it. And that's something I called out a few episodes to watch. Is just all the times that the edit, he doesn't know what's going on and doesn't know what he's doing. For all the mastermind talk and all he moves. They never miss a chance to show that Russell's kind of an idiot, and that's how they view him. And that scene is the best. And Jerry isn't like that. She's actually scared of Russell, right?
Yeah.
She's what are they doing?
For Danielle.
Yeah, but what? And she's because it looked like she was not in the final group, and I think she believed that she was in Russell's final 3. She believes that right up until the moment that she sees the vote that he cast for her. But yeah, she gives a confession that she's just like, why? What is Sandra doing? You don't push Russell's buttons, but turns out no. If you're Sandra, you're going to push those buttons. She did it with Johnny Fairplay the entire time. She would make fun of him. She would fight with him. She called him an MFer. But then when it was
loud too.
Yeah, but then when it was time to work with him, she would work with him. She would have those conversations because that's where, as long as it's not me. And this will happen again with Russell. She has like a heart-to-heart conversation with Russell when she convinces him that he would beat her in the end.
And even in these episodes in the reward where they step out together for the food and have like they're like, yeah, don't like this was fun, cookies, yay, ooh, maybe we'll get this if none of them step down. Like they still like. She can still be like a fun person for him to be around.
Yeah, and I think that these are examples of Sandra's social game, and it's one it's kind of echoes Tyson's game in a way too. Is that when you're like legitimately funny, you get away with things that other people don't, because and this is a little teaser. Next week we're going to talk about probably all the mistakes that like Sandra makes that would cost other people, but don't cost her at all, because when you're Sandra, you can do those things, and when you're somebody else, you can't. So yeah, I think that's it for this episode. We're, as we said, next week is the final one for Heroes vs. Villains. We'll cover the finale, the reunion, all of Russell's tears, and the flaws in the game, and then the season as a whole. You can find our posts on our website,
purplerockpodcast.com.
As a little teaser, we will be updating our seasonal rankings in the next little while. So when we rank every season 1 through 32 now, spoiler free for people who still want to figure out what the best seasons are to watch, and we're right, so it helps. So that'll add Ko-Rong to the list, and also John's opinion of Gabon. So look out for that. You can find us on Twitter at Purple Rock Pod, Purple Rock Andy,
Purple Rock Emma,
and then throw them a little bone. There's also the other members of our site: Purple Rock John, Purple Rock Mark, Purple Rock Matt. Because maybe you just want to add more people to your follows list, because really like following Matt isn't really worth it.
He's starting to tweet a little bit more.
The value is really just to see our inner conversations, because who wouldn't want to read the tweets that we have to each other.
We have delightful banter.
It's true. Sometimes it's even liked by prominent Survivor winners.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Sandra's voting confessional for Rupert is also amazing.
Yeah, and that's actually it's worth mentioning both ways, because it's another little teaser. So yes, as she votes, she's like, "I'm going to vote your name again, and you're still going to vote for me for the $1 million." And a fun little postscript is on the DVDs they show the full voting confessionals or the post-vote interviews. Rupert says that I'm not going to vote for you again. I don't know about that.
I don't know about that.
Now in Ponderosa, he figures out that she actually was trying to help them, and Candace messed it all up. So that's where he turns it around, and I think becomes their biggest advocate.
Did he not know that? Isn't that why it was so satisfying to vote out Candace?
Well, he knows the Candace flip, but he was operating as though Sandra was also flipping, and that's why Candace was doing it.
Got it. Whereas more like Sandra was like, well, no point in going down with the ship. Peace out.
Yeah. All right. Let's use this moment to pretend like I'm going to hit some theme music.